Huh? Was that you that did the heavy side? Well, let's see if Dreamweaver opens for me. Let's try that to start out with. Come on, Dreamweaver, do it, do it, do it, do it. Come on. No whammies, no whammies, no whammies. Yay! Well, hooray! Yeah, well, so Chrome crashed on me. So for those of you that so I sent out an email to Section 2 about saying, hey, guess what? I deleted another Section 2 video. Sorry about that. So everybody got that email, and you can watch the Section 1 video, right? Yeah, what happened yesterday was when I was opening Dreamweaver and starting the video at the same time, the recording, Chrome crashed on me. And so I didn't know if the video that I had started was going to work or not. So I went to go delete it, and I deleted the wrong video. Jazz hands, right? So you guys know how to find the Section 1 video, right? Right? Yes. Okay. So what we are going to do today then is, if we look at the schedule. So last week, let's just kind of review what we did last week. Last week, you were to create a static homepage with multiple loops for your WordPress site. And so that then assignment is due by the end of the week this week, right? What's today? 16th? So by the end of the week this week. So what you should have done, to reiterate on that, is again, the main objective was to, if we go to the original demo in this class, or we can just go to the demo that we did last week, right? What you guys should have done was integrate your homepage design from your homepage template into your theme. So again, if we are in Section 2, right? I opened up Section 1. That's not what I want to do. Section 2 for a site. So if then, when we started from your template system and you had home HTML and main.html, again, if we opened up the home page template, here's why I wanted you to make a main level template and a home level template, right? Again, if you're wondering what I mean by that, again, if we just draw out the information architecture, right, home page. Why don't we go to the drawing that I've previously drawn on the board instead? Forget that I've taken whiteboard drawings in this class. So again, if we look at the information architecture here that I've drawn on the board previously, your home level page, and then from there, the main level templates, right, are, let's say it like this. You did a home level template and a something that is not the home level, right? Where we have been so far working on the anything but the home level pages in our website, meaning that if we have index.php running or page.php running, these loops right here, right, page.php, Section 2. So if we go to, again, a regular level page, right? And we're using page.php, right? This level of page in our information architecture, again, should have the content area and the sidebar area, okay? The sidebar area is where I'd like you to put in your sub-navigation, and we are going to add some other things in there. If you don't have a, so I'm going to reference what we were talking about, Dan, right? Can I put yours up on the screen? Okay. So for instance, if you don't have a spot in your template for a sidebar, because that's not how you designed it, okay, I can go with that and just put the, so for instance, Dan has Taproom? About? Yeah. Okay. So he has his subpages there in his design. And here's what I'm saying about that in terms of assignment requirements. Totally fine with me, right? So it doesn't have to be actually in your sidebar. If that's your design that you have, great. If not, if you have something designed this way, great. Just utilize that being your sub-navigation there. So, but did you get your blog categories in there yet?
Not in there yet.
No. Okay. So he still has work to put his blog categories up top there, right, from one of the previous assignments. And then if we go to a home page layout, right? Yours is still in transit, so
What's that?
the home page layout, you didn't have the flex slider and stuff in there. Don't worry about it. So if we then go to a home page, right? This is where I wanted you to use the home page template that you set up. And this is where you can take the guts from there to then populate in front page to do your standard loop, a secondary loop if you want to do a third level loop in there, right? So your standard loop that pulls the content from the home page out of the content management system, out of the admin, out of the dashboard, out of the database, however you want to say it, will go possibly in this area. The then secondary loop that pulls, that we are giving directions to the second loop and then pulling information for the second loop is what we did last week, or what I did in the demo last week, where then we have latest news, latest articles. So do I have any questions about that and what we're doing in regards to that? Again, if you have a homepage design that doesn't fall in line with the, great, I have a flex slider and 3 widget boxes. My answer is, that's cool, that's fine. Just make sure that you have a spot where you are pulling your normal content loop from that page, and then you have another spot for a secondary loop that you are doing something like your latest postings. And if you want to segregate your latest postings into the individual categories or elaborate, play around with it, right? I just want to make sure that you have the bargain basement requirements of create a homepage with a short SEO paragraph. And what I mean by the SEO paragraph is this paragraph, right? So that should go in a file called front page, uses your front page template. If you have not done so already, go to your settings reading, set your front page to be the home page and your latest postings to be the blog page. In your front page file, create loop number 1, the standard loop. In your front page file, create your second nested loop, so on and so on. I will check. Good? All right. So now moving on then, the next lecture and assignment. If we go to then the, let's see, that's section 2, have that open. This is the regular demo. So now for our blog, right? currently on our blog, we have, so again, we're in section 2. So currently, in our blog, we have just used our standard design where we have then a headline that links to the actual article, right? So if I click on that, it should go to then the individual article, okay? We have our byline, date line, whatever you want to call this line right there. We have then the content here that gets pulled So again, on the blog page, this is where this and this are then this, I guess you would say, is a blog feed page, right? Where then you have the multiple listings of your blog postings, similar to if you had a website that was indeed a blog, Ron. Yeah, you've heard. Ron is always busting me on how WordPress is a blogging. If you want to blog, right? So again, this is where then, in terms of my personal blog, we have the listings of, hey, this blog posting, that blog posting, this blog posting, that blog posting. And again, in terms of a usability, right? When you are then going to a website and hopefully not seeing anything to do with Donald Trump at all. Oh, God. I was hoping, right? And you were looking then for articles to read. The design that you most likely see on, let's say, so this right here, this block right here on this home page could be equal to what you currently have done, or we have done here, right, where we have segregated out articles into latest news, latest articles, et cetera, et cetera. But what this doesn't have, like what Time has, well, let's say it like this. It has a headline and a byline and a category, but how usable is this? In other words, when you go to look at a home page and you want to read timely content, meaning in our current lingo, blog postings, right? You might expect to then see a featured image of that posting. You would expect to see a headline of that posting. You would expect to see an excerpt or a summary, a very well-written summary of handcrafted summary of that posting, possibly a date, possibly a category. True? Okay, so that's what we are going to work on today. And we are going to turn then our current blog feed, in other words, to present in your blog feed a headline, a byline, and then the whole text of the article, not very usable, right? Think of, we're not seeing them as much these days, but when blogs first started out, this was personal blogs, especially for people, you know, like you and me that are running their own mom and pop organization or whatever you want to say. We would see that we would have the full text of the article, right? And possibly maybe somewhere in there, we would cut off and have that more link, like we discussed earlier in this class, and I told you not to use that more link. Who remembers that? Good, a couple of hints. I always like feedback when I ask questions, right? So instead, we are going to turn this into this, where we are then going to have a headline, a byline, a featured image, and an excerpt, okay? That's our today's goal. So, ready? Let's go. So, creating custom post feed with featured images. We also flip to the correct page. My notes. So, again, many WordPress sites typically use the front page of their site as a blog feed page. And this is where then, like on my personal blog, you might see title, byline, categories, a picture, and an excerpt. But a lot of websites like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this website before, premiumw.com. Has anybody seen this one yet? No? You sure? Really? So we may use then again that kind of design of somewhere on our home page having the section for blog and having a featured image, having a title, possibly an excerpt, possibly a date line, byline, etc. But when it comes to then, if we actually go to the blog section, right, this is where then, as we scroll down, we see title, featured image, excerpt, and then byline, okay? So if we then, so again, if you have not done it already, in your assignment dashboard, settings, reading, right? Again, we want the front page to display the home page. We want the post page to go to our blog, right? So that's that screenshot. Then once you have set that blog feed page to occupy, you know, if it's called blog, right? The template that you are going to be using for that page is the index template. So I'm going to close these other ones. Well, let's leave page and front page. Has anybody at this time sort of asked themselves, well, why are you separating things into index, page, front page, and single? Has anybody questioned that at all? Yeah? Why? Why am I doing this? Why not just leave it as when we, so we started off with index.php and we broke it into the other files, okay? So why not leave it as index.php? What's the disadvantage of that?
I presume it has to do with how WordPress uses keyword files.
Maybe. Here's my answer.
Okay.
We play the guess what's in Mike's head game all the time, right? My answer is, here's your loop, okay? So by having separate files for separate use case scenarios, meaning your home page looks one way, your regular pages in your information architecture look another way, your blog feed looks another way, and your posting page may look very much like a regular page, but what's the difference of a posting and a page, if you guys remember? Posting versus page, timely. right? Pages are static, blogs are timely. So that leads to the one difference of what we did here in single, right? Was that in this loop then, so we could have done it where we did a conditional here that said, if we're on a single posting, put in the byline, right? So we could have 6 to 1, half a dozen to the other, right? We could have said, if it's single, write small, write that byline in there, right? Or we could organize it differently and instead say, if we're on a single posting, grab the single.php file as a template and use the loop that we have written then in that file. So we have already started that process of, if we started with index.php, right? This is our standard, what we started with. We then, by breaking things into another file, front dash page, look at how different this looks here. And again, those of you at home that can't see me pointing at the projector, this stuff here versus this stuff here, right? So in other words, what I'm saying is, why we break things into those different files is we are going to have different criteria that we put inside our standard loop. Does that make sense? So that's why we're doing it.
So you could have had one file that does exactly the same thing with a whole bunch of conditional.
Correct.
But it would be horrific to try and maintain. This is where you have individual little files with specific purposes.
Let me show you an example. So let me show you an example if I can find it. So indulge me for a second. So when I was working on Drupal, there it is. It worked mainly off of one page, like index, at least what I was working on. And so I had throughout that index, if is front page or logged in, write this little stuff, else write this kind of stuff. So yes, you could have that one index file that riddled all through that file as a bunch of use case scenarios of what page we're on and where, right? That would get pretty, well, let's just say it like this. We are using that theory, that methodology, with what we put into our sidebar. If we're on a page, get the title, else use the title blog. If the page has a parent, list pages of the post parent, else list pages for children of the post, or list categories, right? So if you thought this was starting to get complex, which it kind of is, if we had one file that did everything else conditional style, it would get super complex and probably get to the unmanageably complex point. Right.
Pointing out, there's no technical reason you couldn't. It's
correct.
manageability.
Correct. It's usability on the developers. True. Okay. So that being said, then, if we go to index.php, right? Currently, we have if have posts, while have posts, the post, h2, small byline, the content. So here's the one difference that we're going to use today. For the content, right, that's where then currently we are kicking out all the content from the text editor. Meaning if I go to this single PHP, and every time I say single PHP, I hear Beyonce in my head saying all the single ladies. I do. I just have to tell you guys that kind of stuff because I do feel crazy, and I want, I want you to say, it's okay, Mike.
It's okay.
Thank you. So we are then going to get rid of, or not get rid of, but instead of using this text, what we want to use is the excerpt field, okay? So again, excerpts are optional, handcrafted summaries of your content that can be used in your theme. Learn more about manual excerpts, okay? Whoops. Okay, so how to add excerpts to posts, okay? So what we're basically gonna do, if we go back to then, let's just go to this, this article here, and if I log in, actually, let's go not to this article. Let's go to this article. So let's say you are trying to research responsive web grids, responsive website grids. And you type in responsive website grid. And on the first page, as you're scrolling down, you're like, who is this jerk that wrote this one? Convert a 960 grid website layout to a responsive design. And you're so impressed that that is on the first page, and you click it and it goes to this, I don't know if you've heard of this guy, right? If it goes to this guy's website, why is he on page 1 of Google?
SEO.
The SEO theories that I've laid out in this article. And here's one of the primary fundamental theories that I've laid out in this article. If we go here to convert a 960 grid website and we start reading the text, shh, don't tell anyone, blah, 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 anecdotal, 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 blah, 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 blah. But if we look at the view page source, and we look then at the meta description that is used for SEO purposes, right? Look at the meta description. To convert your pixel perfect 960 grid website layouts, responsive design, you need to write a little more CSS, JavaScript, navigation, mobile devices. It's littered with keywords that are appropriate to this posting. So one could say that is a handcrafted summary of the article, or a handcrafted keyword dense summary of the article that helps with search engine optimization. Okay, so therefore, if we look at the code for this page, and we go to header, and we look at meta name, description, content. I need to remove this strip tags function. I don't need that strip tags function anymore. But look at the function here, get the excerpt. Okay, so there are two functions to get the excerpt. Well, again, what is the excerpt, right? So if we're looking at this page here, I thought I logged in already. Maybe I didn't. This function pulls from this field. Okay, So how many of you have taken the writing for the web class already? Anybody in here? No?
How was it? It's the summer, right?
Yeah, it's this summer. You're going to?
So like, I saw it today online, I was wondering about it.
So in that class, I teach you how to write for the web or electronic medium, specifically for a website, meaning short to the point sentences formatted with the F pattern formula, keyword dense, search engine optimized. In other words, human readable, machine readable text for a website. Okay. So Bella, you took that class, right? Okay. So remember when we were talking about reusable chunks in that class? Okay. One of the very primary reusable chunks that you can use is a handcrafted summary about that article or page. Okay. That can show up I hate when unknown calls me. I wish unknown would leave me alone. Okay. That shows up here in your meta description. That shows up if we go to the blog feed. Right here on the blog feed page, where that chunk of information shows up under the services page, where I'm pulling then a tutorial to feature into this page. So the meta description on the page, the blog feed page summary, the pulled case study in the services page, and 4 probably on the home page. Nope. But if I showed more blog postings, that could possibly show up on the home page, right? So 3 to 4 different places in the website are pulling from this same field that we've populated. Okay, does that make sense? So therefore, how do we do that, right? Can we all sort of agree on, oh, that's a great design idea. That'll help with search engine optimization, right? Oh my God, you should teach a class on SEO or something, right? Thanks for laughing. Okay. So then here, instead of the content on index.php, we can simply say the excerpt. So if we change this then to the excerpt, and we wait for Dreamweaver to not respond for a while, but eventually it will respond. Let's close some of these tabs, shall we?
That's the sound of YouTube viewers fast forward.
You know, don't throw me off my game like that, Adam. Okay. So now if we visit site and we go to, are you saying they're fast forwarding because Dreamweaver isn't responding?
Oh yeah, they just want to get to the next interesting.
So now here, notice that for the first one, we have this, right? So if we use the excerpt function and there is nothing written in the excerpt field, WordPress will say, great, I will take the first 150 or so characters from the article, present them, and then give this little ellipses and brackets to say there is more to be continued on that, okay? Or if like this one, we have then, if we edit post, and we go to the excerpt field and it says the excerpt, right? It will pull from the excerpt field. Make sense? So therefore, what I would encourage you to do is just take dummy copy from your page or posting, populate it in the excerpt field, and notice when I did that, it got rid of the bold. Okay? So in the excerpt field, you cannot put HTML tags in there unless you use a plugin that allows you to do it. But I used a plugin at one point in time because I didn't know how to code my way into doing what I wanted it to do, right, in terms of theme development. But since I've learned how to do proper theme development, I just leave this excerpt field default the way it is. Okay, so therefore then, if I update that, it will have that piece of text as the excerpt. Okay. If I then go to this one, and right now, because there's nothing in the excerpt field, it says nothing in the excerpt field, let's go pull this. So let's populate this with dummy copy, update, view post, go back to the blog feed. So now it's looking more like a standard blog feed design where I've got the title, I've got a byline, I've got a category, I've got an excerpt. Okay. So in this lecture then, right, creating custom post feed with featured images, right, we have our standard loop that we've had the content function in there that gets the page or posting written content, where we could use the insert read more tag that we have gone over in the past, and I really highly recommend that you do not use this. Instead, we have just used the excerpt function. Okay, so if we take a look at the excerpt function, it does exactly what it says, displays the post excerpt. Okay, notice that there are no arguments that you can pass through the excerpt function. Okay, you're stuck with the defaults of using the excerpt function the way it is. Okay, if you wanted to use the excerpt function and possibly then give it a character count, right, which may be something that you want to do, you could use the substring function, which basically says get characters from 0 to 150. Does that make sense? Okay, so you can use normal PHP written functions in tandem with the WordPress written functions. Okay, also notice instead of the excerpt, there is also get the excerpt. Okay, have you guys noticed a pattern in WordPress so far that there's the title and then there's get the title? There's now the excerpt and there's get the excerpt. Why? What's the difference?
This is part of that new version of WordPress functionality that they've shipped.
Maybe. In my observational how it works, here's what I've come across. The get functions typically use a companion echo statement. Okay, so because we are using here we are inside the standard WordPress loop, we do not have to use an echo statement here. Okay, but what if you're outside the standard WordPress loop? For instance, does that make sense to you, Ron?
Yep.
How many people does that make sense to? If it doesn't, just hear this. Burp, 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 burp. Mike said the goes in the standard loop. Burp, 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 burp. Anytime you see get, it has an echo statement and it's not in the standard loop. Burp, 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 burp. That's what you should have heard there, right? So if you write that down or replay, Adam, if you rewind that part of the video over and over and over and over again and listen to it, right, and get it stuck in your head. So there are times, hold on, Ron. There are times where specifically in our functions file, where we will be operating outside of the standard loop, okay? Now, sometimes things like the title will work, right? But so it's not always a one-to-one case scenario. But what I have noticed is things like my posting post excerpt, I'm using a return statement here to then get the case excerpt. Okay, so this is yet a third model, right? Where basically my post is get my post ID, right? So this my posting right here is synonymous to the post object. So remember how we said everything is a post object, right? So what we're saying is for a post object, get the post excerpt there, okay? Let's actually do a search through this functions file, right? Page excerpt, get field, post excerpt, get excerpt, case excerpts. I may not have one in here, but we can also use the get the excerpt here as well with an echo statement. So let's just kind of say this excerpt function, what it actually returns is so if we inspect this, right, it returns the excerpt within a set of paragraph tags, okay? So if you're using the excerpt, it's going to return it in paragraph tags. So let's say you wanted to accompany this excerpt with a full story link, right? Meaning, like what we're going to turn this into, a read more link, right? Ron, can you guess? Well, let's just write it out and see if you can guess here. So if I want to read more link, right, what I can do here is say, let's go look for the double chevron. Almost there, almost there, almost there. There it is, double chevron. right? So let's say we put this read more in a paragraph tag or a small tag or some kind of something like that. But for right now, let's put it in a paragraph tag, okay? And so now if we look at it here, we have this read more in a paragraph tag. Make sense? How am I going to get this to link to the article? Huh? Okay.
Wasn't that easy?
Huh?
Wasn't that easy?
Yeah, but it's an anchor tag, but how do you get it to actually link to the article? The answer is on the screen there.
The permalink?
The permalink function, right? Again, what's happening here is in this if there are postings, while there are postings, again, if there are postings, while there are postings, show me the postings, right? So if there are 2 postings, 1 and 2, show me then the headline, the small, the paragraph tag, the read more, the headline, the small, the paragraph tag, the read more for those 2 postings I've found, right?
Is there also a get the permalink?
I believe there might be. Let's look it up.
It looks like the get versions of them, you have to specify the ID of the.
Yeah, I think that, well,
When you're in the loop.
yes and no. Let's put it this way. Sometimes you have to use the get with an echo, and sometimes you have to use the other one, just the without an echo, right? And let's put it this way. If you need to use an echo statement, you have to use the get version, right? They kind of, it's not always cut and dry in the loop, out of the loop. But that's mostly what I've seen, right? But not necessarily.
In the loop, it knows what article you're referring to.
Correct.
So you don't have to tell it. So you can use the.
Oh, that's
the
right.
version.
Because it has an
Inside
ID.
the loop, you've got to tell it.
That's right.
how to use the get.
But okay, let's keep that. You're onto something there. Let's keep that on the back burner. But let's say it like this. On this H2, we have put an anchor tag that we have put the title of the posting in the H2 tag, and then we've used the permalink to get the URL to then that article. Okay, so if we then save this and we refresh it, now this read more link links to the article. Okay, what if you want that read more link to sit inside the paragraph tag with the excerpt, right? This is where then, because the excerpt also writes the paragraph tag around, right? That's where I initially, how many of you have old code that you mean to update and you just never get to it? How many of you have written code that you're like, oh, that's not the way we do it anymore, I should go rewrite that, and you never get to it? Okay, so that's where I initially used the strip tags function to pull out the paragraph tags, right? But what I discovered is by using just get the excerpt with an echo statement or an echo function, it doesn't write the paragraph tags in there, okay? So therefore, what you could also do instead of the excerpt like this is write the paragraph tag, or let's actually just use comment that one out. And inside this paragraph right here, then, use an echo function to get the excerpt. Okay. So if we now use the Google machine, the most powerful machine in the universe, to look up get the excerpt, that's where, yes, you are correct. You can then pass the argument through the get the excerpt function, right? Where what you can do then is pass the ID of the post through that function to say get the excerpt for that number.
And then if you don't do free one, it uses whichever one.
Right,
you have.
right. Okay. Again, it's not always one-to-one cut and dry, right? But that's kind of the machine that they built, right? So that's what I've noticed in terms of the get functions versus the functions, right? Because if it's inside the loop, you're already accessing the ID for that. But if you need to then get the excerpt for ID of whatever, right? Then you use the get the, okay? And that's what I did for in the functions where for case study, get featured case study, the post excerpt here. So my posting, post excerpt, my posting, get my post ID, post ID. This is where you pass the ID through shortcode. So yeah, you are passing the ID to use the get version of the excerpt. Phew. But if we go back here, then I'm going to say inside this p tag, echo get the excerpt, right? And then I could always put a space. No, I don't want to put the space there. I will put the space there. Save. And then now, we should have that read more inside that paragraph tag along with the excerpt. Okay, so that's the way I do that kind of functionality now. Okay, all right. Going back here, great. Now what we've done is we've gotten the excerpt. Array!
Did you say array?
Array.
To be funny.
To be funny, yes. Thanks, Joss. Thanks for being there for me.
Well, I heard you. I thought you said array.
Yeah.
You said
Yeah.
array.
So if you have not done so already, right, this is where you can use the time function, right, to then on a byline. I think I've already done it in here. How many of you have already done this, posted on the time, the author, in the category? Have most of you guys done that already? No? Okay. Should I erase this and start over? Sure, why not? So let's say that yours currently looks like this, right? Well, we want it to look more like this, where we have the title, the byline. In other words, posted on the date and time by the author in the category. So again, if we just write that out in pseudocode, I'm going to get rid of the excerpt right now. So if we kind of write that out in pseudocode, does everybody know what I mean by pseudocode? Okay. If you do not, here's a poor man's version of what I mean by pseudocode. What I am attempting to write out is posted on the date by the author in the category, right? So essentially, I have written out on a napkin the directions that I want to program, okay? So if I want to use the date, right, just like if I wrote by hand here the title, saying I want to get the title, and WordPress has written a function called the title that gets the title for the post ID, I want to use a function here, not called the date, but, oops, the time, right? And so if I write out the time function, here's what it's going to do by default. I'm just closing some windows here. So here we are. I've just put the time in there. And it is going to, by default, say posted on 12:26 a.m. by the author. Okay. So if we look up the time function, so I've linked to it here, here, and there. Oops. New tab. You know how I love tabs. Okay. We can pass the argument of the date through here. So how many of you have ever used the regular PHP, the date function, right? So we are going to be passing similar arguments through there, okay? So if you want it to say December 2nd, 2004, uppercase F, lowercase j, uppercase y. F, J, comma, Y. Posted on April 28th, 2017 by the author, okay? So you can then, in the time function, right, look up the different formats of what you want to pass through there, okay? I'll let you guys explore those because you guys know how to look things up on the internet, right? Google. The Google machine is a pretty powerful machine, isn't it? Right? It is. So next thing, the next function that we want to use. See ya. Thanks for coming. You had to make that joke while I was being observed, didn't you? Didn't you? Didn't you? Didn't you? Thanks. Did you know she was sitting back there? Yeah, yeah, yeah. No. She's on my tenure committee.
Oh,
So she was observing the class for my tenure committee,
gee.
where Adam also sits on my tenure committe.
He does?
Yeah, so I'd expect Adam not to be such a dick next time.
At least you're sober this time. I know, right? Dish it out, like, take it. He was?
Fuck, man. So if we want to get the author, don't make me get a GIF. Put it on the screen. I'm trying not to swear as much in class any longer.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm texting. I start swearing around like.
Oh, you do?
It's weird.
All right. All right.
But your positive effects rub out on me as well.
Okay. Great. Great.
Everyone is trying this out.
All right. So I'm going to use then the author function. I've been swearing a lot since Trump got elected.
Yeah, me too.
Yes. Especially since he gave secrets to the Russians yesterday.
Oh, we did that a week ago. We just didn't remember it yesterday.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It was late yesterday.
Oh, that's old news. So what? He gave codenamed secret intelligence to the Russians. Who cares? So getting back to what we should be talking about. Not talking about that anymore. We then want to say by the author function, right? And here for the category, we want to use the category function. And here for the category, this is where we can pass arguments, right? So here, oh, look at that. We can pass the post ID through there. So it's not always that cut and dry, right? But we can have a separator. So if we write then something like this, a category, right? It will pull whatever category and write it in a list item. Right? If I then say, pass the argument of comma, space, it will then get rid of the list items. But if I have this article, news posting, in more than one category, it shall return both categories separated by a comma. Okay, so this is probably the better convention to use right there, right? Because it takes it out of a UL tag and just writes it kind of in line like that. And if you have multiple categories, it will then separate the categories with a comma, right? If you want it categories to be separated with something like a pipe like this, right? Same thing. Let's put the size a bit and refresh. And now we have a pipe. Let's put a space on both sides. And now there's a space, pipe, etc. Okay. So the one that I typically use when I've been using that is comma space. Okay. But stuff like this right here, right? That's where if you look at the search engine optimized title tag that I did, has anybody started a pool on when he's going to get impeached?
Mhm.
I already lost, I thought it was gonna be in the first of the days.
So if I go to then here, oops, not there, the title tag, this is where I've done things like this, where I've done echo and a little pipe like that to separate stuff, right? So it's similar that it's kind of writing out the whatever you put in a space, okay? So you can then, for the categories, so there's the author, let's close that. There's the time, let's close that. For the category, again, you can also pass arguments, parents, post ID, and so here's this one separated by a comma. You can separate it with an arrow, etc., bullets, so on and so forth. Okay, moving on. The category. Let's now, okay, let's do the post thumbnails, or should we skip down to, yeah, we'll just do it in line here. So post thumbnails. In a regular blog scenario, again, if we go back to the Time or Time Magazine, thetime.com, morrisdayandthetime.com. And we then have this thumbnail here, right? Right there. And one could argue that this is a featured image, true? Okay. So in other words, if we go to this article, let's see if that article, nope, they got a video. They don't have an image associated with it. And then it's really annoying. And this is great usability. Why? Why do this to me, you guys? Here's what happens when you do that to me. Bye-bye. But let's say it like this. So this right here, as well as this excerpt, is a handcrafted written summary. Do you think one could argue that this is a handcrafted photographic summary of the article? Yes or no? Say yes. Say yes. Yes. You wouldn't argue that, Ron?
I wouldn't argue that, I would argue that that's not a photograph.
Handcrafted image
Okay, a handcrafted image of the story.
summary of the story. In other words, that image helps us decipher what this story is about. True? Okay. So as well, if then we go here, right? This is also that same image, just larger, okay? Where the rest of the images then are images that I put in as content that you can zoom in on, okay? So this is a special image, also known as a featured image, also known as the post thumbnail. So when you see post thumbnail is 99.99% synonymous with featured image. Okay, so post thumbnails. Unfortunately, out of the box WordPress, post thumbnails are not supported. Why? Who knows? It should be supported. So when I say why, I mean, why? Why don't you do that, you guys? So if I go to this one posting here and I say edit, oh, that's going to bug me right there. Sorry, I'm going to go to single really quickly and edit that. Single, the category. Okay. Refresh. Articles, news. So if I go to edit this post, then we don't see down here a meta box for featured image. Okay, so we have to add support for it, which I think is really dumb. Why isn't support just automatically added to it? Just like page excerpts. Why aren't page excerpts part of out-of-the-box WordPress when posting excerpts are? That's what I want to know, Anna.
They should hire you.
I got too much to do already. Although, you know, if I could work barely for a lot of money, that'd be cool.
I was gonna say consultants.
I could consult. I could just give them my wicked opinions. They could just watch my videos and pay me. Look, I'm usability testing their product on the fly. So what we need to do then is add theme support for post thumbnails. So similar to like we registered menus, we're kind of registering that we're going to use post thumbnails. But the function that we are going to use then is add theme support. So in the functions file, add theme support for post thumbnails and featured images. How many of you take the time to write up overly done comments like that? I think it's a good habit to get into, right? Better more comments than too few comments. True? In your code? Add theme support. Post nails, nail or nails? Let's see. Nails. So now, if we do that, and we refresh this posting, we should see the meta box for featured images show up. So here's what we can do. We can set a featured image. We can set a featured image. And we can go to the media library and say, oh, well, do I want to use this one? Nah. Let's use this one. I have given you guys this featured image. Okay. You know how long it took me to make a gray box and type featured image and save it for you guys? Long time. Save link as. Doesn't matter where I save it because I don't really need to keep it. It went to my downloads folder. So I can then go to edit post, and I can do one of two things. I can upload this directly to the posting by add new, because it's going to go into my media library anyway, or I can go to my media library and add it. Because this is a generic image, I am going to go to my media library and add it. And so again, when I select this file and it uploads, okay, remember that if I look at my uploads folder here, it is now said image featured, and it's made a 150 by 150, a 300 by 225, and a 1024 by 768. And this one is still a mystery to me, 768, 576. Why are you making that one? I don't understand what's going on. And it's making those separate files because under settings, remember, media, we have told our thumbnails to be 150 by 150, our medium to be 300 by whatever, our large size to be 1024 by whatever, right? This is what I don't understand. Why is it making a 768? I don't get it. I don't know where that's coming from right now. It's bothering me. But nonetheless, I have keyword, thumbnail, medium, and large size to use, okay? So let's say then, I want to on my feed have that thumbnail image here. Well, if we go to the post thumbnails, we have different functions that we can use. Has post thumbnail. So we can use a conditional statement that says if there are thumbnails, get the thumbnail. Okay. And again, we have the post thumbnail and get the post thumbnail. So there's typically two different functions that do for the same kind of thing. The post thumbnail. Arguments. Post thumbnail when the theme app, so register, develop. So tell us where we have to use it? No. So I can then pass size or attributes through it. So I'm going to go to index. And I'm going to say the post thumbnail, size thumbnail. And I'm going to accidentally launch Edge.
We want you to think it's messy.
What?
They want you to think it was an
Yeah.
accident.
Yeah. Did I spell something wrong? The post thumbnail.
With an S, right?
I don't remember.
The other one was thumbnail.
The post thumbnail. The post thumbnail. The post thumbnail. Thumbnail. See what the argument is. Oh. Size. Parameter. Should be thumbnail, right? The post thumbnail. Save. I make a mistake in there somewhere?
You have to get the key as well as the value or something.
Oh, I know what I didn't do. Who knows what I didn't do? I didn't set my featured image. So now that I've set my featured image, an update. See, you're not alone. I ask myself, what did I do? Why isn't it working? I don't have a teacher to ask. Back in my day, we didn't have teachers. So there's my thumbnail. Why is it sitting where it's sitting? Because I haven't styled it yet.
Because you haven't styled it yet.
Because I haven't styled it yet. So post thumbnail. Remember how we said in your CSS file, you have certain WordPress words, keywords, classes that you need to use possibly. So again, this is where Dan and Chris hate me. Because what I'm making Dan and Chris do, and Trang, right, is instead of using the classes that they originally wrote in their HTML to use in their CSS, instead of trying to, they're looking at it where why doesn't WordPress write the class into my HTML correctly? How do I do that? And instead, what I'm saying is, no. Look at it from the other side. Look at the classes that WordPress writes into your HTML and change your CSS accordingly, right? Have you been doing that, Dan? Yeah?
You know, choice.
Right. Do you and Chris and Trang sit around and,
Yeah, we built a little campfire
yeah?
and just, burn.
And you, damn, that's some cool, yeah? Burn effigies of me, is that what you said?
Yeah.
All right, I can do that. So what I'm gonna do then is look that up, inspect. Image tag, class, attachment thumbnail, size thumbnail, WP post image. So I'm going to use size thumbnail. And I'm going to go to my CSS. And I'm going to go to where I am in my content area, go into image. And I have content image featured, and I am going to do content image size thumbnail. Float, left, margin right. 20 pixels. You have next. Uh-oh. Why is this floating? Or
It's floating, it's just moving around.
right. We'll deal with that there here in a second. For now, let's go to single.php. And this is where I'm going to do the same thing. The post thumbnail large. Featured image size large. Okay. So from here, you can then, oh, I know also the versus get. The, just like the content, the excerpt, they also write their own HTML around the element. So let's say you need just the element without the surrounding HTML, right? I think that's also part of it too. Just like the excerpt puts it in a P tag, right? Not always true, but sometimes true. Okay, so let's go back then to here. Okay, what's going on here is in my index, I have, because these are then it's a while loop. So for each posting, write this markup. What I should do is surround that with some kind of a wrapper containing tag. We'll choose the article tag because that's semantic. Okay. Article. And this is where I can do class, and I can make the class whatever I want to, right, to then use in my CSS. Okay. So I can also say ID. So what I typically do is I give it both an ID and a class. And post excerpt, right? And this is where I want to eventually give this an ID number. So I'm going to do this class. Yeah, I'm not done with it yet. So I should have done class first. Let's start over. You're right, Ron. You're always right.
No.
Yeah, you're always right. So I'm going to say class post excerpt. So I want this article to have a class of post excerpt. But I also would like to sometimes individually access one of these things by an ID number. So if I want this unique one to have an ID number, right? This is where I can say, and this is a strategy that I've used over the years, right? I think it's uppercase. Let's look. Double check, because I don't remember things off the top of my head. Did I do the permalink? Oh, I didn't do the permalink around the thumbnail. Let's do that really quickly. Post thumbnail. a ref. So if I save that now, my image should also link to the posting. If I go back, article. So yes, you were right. I didn't have a clear on there. And take a look. I did get that right. Post excerpt 59, post excerpt, right? So if I wanted to then go into my CSS and say, contents, article, post, excerpts. How many of you guys are making fun of me right now in your head for, thanks Joss, for,
I had a question.
oh, so hold on.
Sorry.
So here, I could have just written that post excerpt, right? But instead, I go the long way and say what tag it's on and in what element.
What?
I have found that if I am less specific, this class of post excerpt I might use on different elements. And I may not want, right, the same directions on each element. So I have gotten in the habit of taking the long road. And this helps me as well organize everything in terms of content, so on and so forth. So I can organize my CSS by element structure, right, of how I do my markup in my elements. It's just, again, it's one man's style of doing something. You can critique it as, hey, that sounds great, or hey, that's stupid, and whatever, okay? So let me get to this last thing, and then I'll answer your question, Joss. So here is where, yes. Oh, okay. So here is where then I can say overflow auto or hidden. Let's go with hidden, right? And that's where now, oh, that may or may not, let's see what that does. That prevents the great collapse, but it might not, yeah. So it kind of cleared it, but we could also then say margin bottom 20 pixels, right? We could even give it, you know, let's not give it a border, right? I don't want to spend too much time on CSS because yours is going to be different. You can style yours however you want, right? You should style yours however you want, but I'm looking for the functionality. So, but now our right there, that's small. Let's see. Index, small image. I want small in my CSS. Here I said I wasn't going to spend too much time on CSS, but content, small, display block, because I don't want it to be an inline level element. I want it to be a block level element. And small by nature is a inline level element. Let's give that a margin bottom too. Margin bottom. So anyhow, this is shaping up to be a little bit more like a traditional blog feed, right? So let's see. Permalink, extra step, customize your single template. That's where I added the posted by date. Did I put the, yeah, post thumbnail large. We already did that. This is where then I put an article ID and class around the elements in the loop. And yeehaw. You should now, hopefully, have something that looks along the lines of this. Or at least when you watch this again and do it for real. Okay. I don't know. What do you guys want to talk about? Danielle, anything? I like your hat.
Do you know how to look at previous iterations of websites as a Wayback Machine?
I've done it. I don't generally do it.
You've done it in different-
Oh, besides the Wayback Machine? No. Yeah. No. All right. So I got nothing. How should I close out, Ron?
Positive affirmations. Mind everyone not to share national secrets with the Russians.
Okay. Don't share national classified information, you guys, with other countries.